Greetings, seekers of wisdom. Today we invite you to join us on an intellectual journey to the mesmerizing intersection of two colossal minds, a Fyodor Dostoevsky and Friedrich Nietzsche time and again. In philosophical and literary discussions, the mention of one name almost instinctively summons the other. But why? What was it about Dostoevsky's work that so captivated Nietzsche? Nietzsche openly admitted that Dostoevsky was the only psychologist from whom he had anything to learn, a staggering admission from a thinker who spared no one his criticism. This was no casual praise, but a recognition of Dostoevsky's unparalleled ability to dissect the human soul with surgical precision, while other psychologists and philosophers of his time dealt in abstractions. Dostoevsky plunged into the raw, unfiltered chaos of human consciousness, exposing its contradictions with brutal honesty. Nietzsche, always keen on understanding the human, all too human aspects of existence, found in Dostoevsky's characters a living laboratory of psychological states, far more authentic and revealing than any academic treatise. He saw in Dostoevsky a fellow explorer of the darker, often unacknowledged impulses that drive human behavior. What Nietzsche found revelatory was how Dostoevsky's characters think against themselves, embodying psychological truths that most thinkers dared not confront. They are not moral exemplars or rational agents, but living contradictions, tormented by guilt, driven by irrational impulses, paralyzed by self-awareness, yet compelled to self-destruction. In works like Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky didn't just describe human nature. He performed an autopsy on the modern soul, revealing the rot beneath its civilized veneer. Nietzsche, with his own profound distrust of conventional morality and rationalistic systems, recognized in this dissection a powerful affirmation of his own insights into the will to power and the deceptive nature of human motivations. He saw how Dostoevsky's characters, in their struggles and self-deceptions, revealed the underlying drives that rational thought often seeks to mask or suppress. Take the underground man, that spiteful, hyper-conscious antihero who embodies what Nietzsche would later call ressentiment, the poisonous resentment of the weak against the strong. Here was a man who chooses suffering as an act of defiance, who clings to his misery as proof of his freedom. "I will not be a piano key," he snarls, rejecting the Enlightenment's promise that reason leads to happiness for him. Irrationality is not a failure, but a rebellion, a theme Nietzsche would expand into his critique of slave morality. The underground man's conscious embrace of suffering, his refusal to be categorized or rationalized, deeply resonated with Nietzsche's ideas about the inherent chaos and defiance within the human spirit. Nietzsche saw in him a primal, albeit distorted, expression of the will asserting itself against the prevailing norms of society and the comforting illusions of reason. This was psychology stripped of illusions. Where philosophers constructed systems, Dostoevsky exposed the violent, irrational undercurrents that systems try to suppress. His characters don't behave logically. They act out of wounded pride, perverse desire, or sheer spite, and in doing so, they reveal a truth Nietzsche championed: that human beings are not rational animals, but creatures of passion, contradiction, and will. Nietzsche believed that Western philosophy, from Socrates onward, had overemphasized reason at the expense of instinct and the will. Dostoevsky's characters provided compelling evidence for this view, demonstrating how deeply rooted irrationality and the drive for power, even self-destructive power, truly are for Nietzsche. The recognition of these darker impulses was not a cause for despair, but a necessary step towards a more honest and profound understanding of human nature. Both thinkers stared unflinchingly into the abyss of a godless world. Dostoevsky's Karamazov declares that if there is no God, everything is permitted. A sentiment Nietzsche echoed in his own way with "God is dead." However, their responses to this profound realization diverged significantly, where Dostoevsky, through his characters like Ivan and Kirillov, explored the tragic and often destructive consequences of absolute freedom in a world without divine grounding. Nietzsche saw a different path.
For Nietzsche, the death of God wasn't a catastrophe, but a liberation from inherited moral chains. It was an opportunity for humanity to transcend existing values and create new ones. Yet he recognized, as Dostoevsky did, the paralyzing weight of this freedom and the immense challenge it posed his Übermensch. Unlike Dostoevsky's self-destructive nihilists who crumble under the weight of everything is permitted, must create new values rather than succumb to despair, where Kirillov from Demons tries to become God through suicide, believing that by taking his own life, he can prove ultimate freedom and overcome the fear of death. Nietzsche's ideal embraces life in all its terror and beauty. The Übermensch is not one who escapes life, but who affirms it, who finds meaning not in external deities or pre-given moral codes, but in the active creation of self and values. Nietzsche acknowledged the immense danger of nihilism, the void left by the absence of God. But unlike Dostoevsky's often despairing characters, he sought to overcome it through a radical affirmation of life and the human capacity for self-overcoming. What makes their intellectual collision so electrifying is that Dostoevsky gave flesh to Nietzsche's ideas before Nietzsche even articulated them. The underground man's self-loathing, Raskolnikov's failed transcendence in crime and punishment, where his attempts to assert his will beyond conventional morality led to immense psychological torment and eventual confession. Ivan's intellectual torment, these were case studies in the human condition that Nietzsche would diagnose philosophically. Dostoevsky showed the psychological and moral chaos that could ensue when individuals genuinely embraced the implications of a world without absolute truths, demonstrating the profound internal struggles that Nietzsche would later analyze in terms of master and slave moralities and the will to power. Dostoevsky showed what happens when reason fails and the soul revolts. Nietzsche asked what we might become if we dare to live beyond good and evil together. They mapped the extremes of human possibility, from the depths of self-destruction and moral decay to the heights of self-overcoming and the creation of new meaning. Their combined work offers a panoramic view of the human psyche grappling with the profound questions of existence, morality, and freedom. In a world where old certainties have crumbled, they compel us to confront the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the inherent contradictions within the human spirit. Their work forces us to ask, can we endure the truth about ourselves, including our irrational impulses and dark desires, without succumbing to despair or self-deception? Is freedom a blessing or a curse when it means bearing the full burden of creating our own values in a godless world? If old moralities collapse, what replaces them? Chaos and nihilistic destruction, or the courageous creation of new, life-affirming values? They offer no easy answers, only the unsettling realization that the greatest human drama is not between good and evil, but between the lies we cling to and the truths we fear. They force us to confront the raw, unfiltered reality of human existence with all its inherent contradictions and profound possibilities. So we ask you, which terrifies you more, the thought that nothing matters, or the responsibility of making meaning yourself in a world stripped of inherent purpose.